Please welcome Frank Turek.
Good evening, UC Berkeley. Wow, they wouldn't let everybody in now, would they? But the important people are here, and I want to start by asking you a question, and that is, where were you 2 months ago today when you heard Charlie had been shot? You know where you were, and you know what you were doing, because that is a life-changing event. As we were driving over to the venue that morning, Charlie got some footage, drone footage, over the university. It was about an hour before we were supposed to start, and he said, "Hey, take a look at this." There were thousands of people there an hour in advance. And I said to him, "Charlie, I don't like this. There's too many buildings around here." But he just shrugged it off, because Charlie knew that in order to love people, you have to make yourself somewhat vulnerable. You can't be completely secure all the time. And so Charlie said, "We're going through with this." And I'll never forget when we were walking in, and it was a Trump rally times 2. I mean, people were screaming. They were just cheering, "USA, USA." You've seen some of the video. And he kind of looked over and he said, "Welcome to the big leagues." And he started tossing hats, and Angel back here gave me a row of hats. And so I was like, okay, I start tossing hats. We're tossing hats, and then Charlie sits down to start answering questions, and someone said, I think it was Angel, he said, "Hey, do you want a hat?" I said, "Yeah, I guess it's kind of hot, I'll put a hat on." And somehow that meant I was signaling the shooter later. You may have seen that crazy conspiracy theory out there. Absolute madness, because we all know somebody had to signal the shooter to say, "Hey, that's Charlie over there." The internet is crazy, ladies and gentlemen. And when that shot rang out and we got him in the car, his eyes were fixed. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking right past me into eternity. He was absent from the body, present with the Lord. But of course, we had to try to do everything we could to save him. And I'm telling you, his security team was amazing. And those gentlemen are here tonight. There's one of them. There's Justin right there. Brian is back there. Dan was there. Rick was there. They did what they were supposed to do. And when this investigation's over and all this conspiracy nonsense is over, you're going to see that they did their job, and they did it well. It wasn't their jurisdiction. It wasn't their jurisdiction to handle the roofs. That was someone else, and they blew it. It was Butler, PA all over again. But as we sit here, we're kind of asking ourselves, well, some say that God spared President Trump. Why didn't he spare Charlie Kirk? Maybe because there is no God, some will say. Why would he allow such an evil thing to occur? Does evil mean there is no God? Well, actually, the exact opposite is true. About a year ago, our mutual friend, James Lindsay, who is an agnostic atheist, texted Charlie, and he said, "Charlie, I've been looking at what's gone on in the communist countries in the 20th century. They killed 100 million of their own citizens. I'm starting to believe in Satan." And Charlie texted back 4 words: "If Satan, then God." Now, what did he mean by that? What he meant was evil is not a thing in itself, it's a lack in a good thing. Evil is like cancer. If you take all the cancer out of a good body, you got a better body. What happens if you take all the body out of the cancer? You got nothing. Evil is like rust in a car. If you take all the rust out of a car, you got a better car. What happens if you take all the car out of the rust? You got a Pinto. You got to be old enough to get that. In other words, evil's not a thing in itself, it's a lack in a good thing. So in order for evil to exist, good must exist. But in order for good to exist, God must exist, because what we mean by good is God's nature. If there is no God, then there is no good, which means there are no rights and there is no justice. You know, Berkeley's famous for free speech and rights, and there's too much injustice out there, yet many of the people outside of this room protesting are atheists. Do you know there's no way to justify good or evil unless God exists? Otherwise, it's just your opinion. Everything's just your opinion. And our founders knew this. Thomas Jefferson said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal and endowed by their government." No, he didn't say that. "Endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that governments are instituted among men to secure these rights." Government doesn't give you rights. Government simply secures the rights you already have, and if the government doesn't do that, then according to Jefferson and the founders, the people have a right to a new government. So evil does not disprove God. It may prove there's a devil out there, but it can't disprove God, because there'd be no such thing as evil unless there was good, and there'd be no such thing as good unless God existed. Now, we still can ask the question, well, God, why did God allow this particular evil to occur? I had a militant atheist once at Michigan State ask me this question. He said, if there is a good God, why doesn't he stop all the evil in the world? And I said, sir, that is an excellent question. Maybe because if he did, he might start with you and me, because we do evil every day. You ever notice when we start complaining about evil, we always start complaining about somebody else doing it? It's like, hey, God, why don't you stop him? God, why don't you stop her? God, why don't you stop the shooter? God, why don't you stop Hitler? God, why don't you stop? Why do we never say, God, why don't you stop me? Ladies and gentlemen, if God were to stop evil at midnight tonight, would you still be alive at 12:01? I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be alive. God doesn't stop evil right now because he gives us free choice. Why does he give us free choice? So we can love. You can't love without free choice. Love by definition requires freedom. So God gives us free choice. The problem is we can use our free choice to do evil like the shooter did. But can any good come from that? The Bible talks a lot about this. We don't have time to get into all the details. But the Bible talks about the fact that testing produces patience, and patience produces character, and tribulation leads to hope. And it says all things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose, to be conformed to the image of his Son. Doesn't say all things are good. There's a lot of evil things out there, but according to God, good things can come from evil, especially to people who are called according to his purpose. And one of the ways that you become more like Jesus is through evil. Man, if you get everything you want every time, you don't become like Jesus, you become a me monster. You need some obstacles in your way if you're gonna become more like Jesus. You need difficulty, you need people to say no. What do we say about kids that get everything they want? They're spoiled. What's spoiled about them? Their character. You want to ruin a kid? Give the kid everything he or she wants. You will ruin them. You need difficulty in your life, and that's what evil does. And sometimes good comes from evil, and we'll never see it. Why is that? Well, there's something out there known as the ripple effect. What's the ripple effect? The ripple effect is that every single thing that happens here ripples forward to affect trillions of other events and billions of people. Most of the time you can't see the ripple effect, but there's actually a story in the Bible that talks about this. This is Joseph in the Old Testament. You guys remember Joseph in the Old Testament? He's sold into slavery by his brothers into Egypt, and he's treated horribly when he gets there. He's falsely accused. He's in prison. Then he interprets a dream for the Pharaoh, and suddenly he's the number 2 guy in all of Egypt, and he puts a whole bunch of grain aside because he knows a famine's coming. Then the very brothers that sold him into slavery leave Israel because there's a famine. They come to Egypt, and Joseph recognizes them. And what does Joseph say when he recognizes them? You dirty rats, you're going to pay for what you did to me. No, what does he say? What you meant for evil, God meant for good, the saving of many lives. The ripple effect, the evil that they did years ago rippled forward to help them later. Most of the time you can't see the ripple effect, but sometimes you can. And you know, we didn't see a ripple, we saw a tsunami after Charlie was brutally murdered. There has never been a time in history where the President of the United States and nearly all of his cabinet and then some other people, friends of Charlie, preached the gospel to 100 million people. I submit to you, if Charlie were here today and we were to say, hey, Charlie, 100 people would come to faith if you give your life right now. Will you do it? He'd say, that's what my life's about already. Yeah, I'd do it. Now, he wouldn't want to leave Eric and the kids, but that's what his life was about already. Well, how about millions that have come to Christ? I'm getting emails from people in foreign countries like Sweden. I got an email from a lady who said, I'm an atheist my whole life. Now I'm a Christian because of Charlie Kirk. Because one man had the courage to live his faith boldly, to love people enough to put himself in harm's way to reach out to them. Because we know that a fascist tactic is to hand the microphone to your opponent and say whatever you want, make your case. The very people that are claiming he's a fascist are the fascists. Now, although we can't always see the ripples, we can trust God for them. Good has come and will come. And one of the greatest ripples of all time happened to the only completely innocent person ever, and that was Jesus of Nazareth. He was brutally murdered, put on a cross, so he could take our punishment upon himself. That great evil rippled forward to the greatest good of all time. We can now be reconciled to an infinitely just God because Jesus took our punishment upon himself. Now, as we know, the folks here at Berkeley are big into justice, as I mentioned earlier. But you know, there is no justice unless God exists. There are no rights unless God exists. And so Jesus is the one that is the just judge. He's going to judge the living and the dead. And let me ask you a question. Maybe you're not a Christian, but you love Turning Point. Do you want to be judged by an infinitely just being? I don't want to be judged by an infinitely just being because I haven't been infinitely just. I'm going to be punished if that's the case. I don't want justice, I want grace. And Christianity is the only worldview where you get grace. You trust in what Jesus has done, and then you're not only forgiven, you're given his righteousness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the greatest story ever told, and it's true. Nine days before he died, Charlie tweeted out, the resurrection is an historical fact. I know some of you are probably thinking, well, how do you know it's an historical fact? I mean, you're getting that from the Bible? I mean, that was written down by Christians. No, it wasn't. Do you know all the New Testament documents were written down by Jews? They weren't Christians. They became Christians because they witnessed something they didn't expect. These people thought they were God's chosen people, and they didn't think that one guy could claim to be God. That was blasphemy. And they didn't think that one guy would rise from the dead. They knew we'd all rise from the dead at the end of time because Daniel and Isaiah talk about that. They didn't think any of this was possible. And yet after denying Jesus and running away during the crucifixion, by the way, do you think they'd make that up if that was true? I mean, if it wasn't true? You think they say they ran away like a bunch of sissy pants men while the women were the brave ones that went down and discovered the empty tomb? Who would make that up? And why would they make it up? To get themselves kicked out of the synagogue and then beaten, tortured, and killed? This is not a list of perks. We're going to start in a religion. We are? Yeah. What's it going to get us? Well, first we'll get kicked out of the synagogue and then we'll get beaten, tortured, and killed. Well, sign me up. What a great idea. No, they're not making this up. And they would never say the women were the first witnesses. I mean, who wrote the New Testament documents down? Men. Now, what man is going to say that he was hiding for fear of the Jews while the women went down to discover the empty tomb? Would any man in here invent that? No. I would. If I was making it up, I'd make myself look good. I'd write down, let's see, we marched right down there and we overpowered that elite Roman guard. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And then we saw Jesus, who congratulated us on our great faith. And then we went and comforted the trembling women. I would never say it was Mr. Sissy Pants. And oh, by the way, why would you never say the women were the first witnesses in that culture? Because a woman's testimony was not considered on par with that of a man. So if you're making up the New Testament story, you'd only have the men be the first witnesses. Yet all four gospels say the women were the first witnesses, which is telling us what? They really were. I actually had a lady come up to me once. No, it was a guy actually. No, it was a lady. There's two people. A lady came up to me at university many years ago and she said, I know why Jesus appeared to the women first. I said, why? And she said, because he wanted to get the story out. I said, that is an excellent point. I hadn't thought of that, because ladies, when your man comes home from work, does he say much? There could have been a nuclear explosion down at the plant. He's not going to tell you. You'll see it on the news before you hear it from him. You'll be watching the news going, hey, hon, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. The nuke blew up. I've been hot for 3 days. What's for dinner? And this guy at University of Cincinnati came up to me and he said, you think that's bad? He said, my buddy was on a plane, a private plane, just he and the pilot. And the pilot died. And my friend didn't know how to land the plane. So he said, just like in the movies, the tower talked him down. When he went home that night, his wife said, how was your day, dear? He said, same old, same old. This is not a made-up story, ladies and gentlemen. And then they went and died for this. Why would they do that? They wouldn't. If you're going to say they made this up, you got to come up with some sort of explanation that has evidence behind it. You notice there's a lot of counter explanations to Charlie's murder, and none of it has any evidence behind it. It's all speculation. You can speculate about anything as to what happened to Jesus. You can say aliens took his body. But you know what the real truth is? Those disciples went to their deaths saying he had risen from the dead. And the disciples didn't get the big three that normally encourage people to lie. They didn't get sex. They didn't get money. They didn't get power. All they got was persecution. Yet they said it was true. Why would they do this? I am never going to forget that day, and I know you are not going to forget it either 2 months ago. I'm never going to forget Charlie's lifeless eyes looking back right past me in that car. It's a life-changing event. Do you know what else would be a life-changing event? a man that predicted and accomplished his own resurrection from the dead. No one would invent that and go through the torture of martyrdom unless it happened. So Charlie would want you to know today, in fact, the last walk we took, we used to take these walks when I was in Phoenix, late at night through Phoenix, and we would just talk about all these issues because he wanted to learn more about how to defend the faith. And the last walk we took was Monday night before he was murdered Wednesday. And one of the biggest issues we talked about was the resurrection. Charlie wants you to know that he's in heaven right now and will be physically resurrected, and so will you. The only question is, are you going to be resurrected up or are you going to be resurrected down? Charlie Kirk is in heaven right now, not because he gave his life for his Savior. Charlie Kirk is in heaven right now because his Savior gave his life for Charlie Kirk.
Come on out here. Come into the stage. Come on out right now. This is my buddy, Professor Peter Boghossian, author of How to Have Difficult Conversations. Come on in there. And my good friend, Oxford professor, author of Free Speech and the End of Woke, my good friend, Andrew Doyle, Dr. Andrew Doyle. And of course, you know Frank Turek. So we want to answer your questions, and nothing is off limits. We are here for you. This seat is, of course, for Charlie. And Charlie, I'm sorry, but I'm going to put my jacket near you. So, okay,
if you disagree, you go to the front of the line.
If you disagree, you go to the front of the line. Okay. This guy's not going to disagree a lot. I see a Trump hat. Yes. Okay. Somebody coming? You can do it. Yes. I love your hat, man.
Thank you. I really respect what you said about all the love thing as an Antifa person, so thank you, Rob. My question for you is,
yes.
Last month you tweeted out that children didn't get sick when you were a kid, so there weren't children's hospitals.
Yeah,
So my question is, does your wife firewall block Google, or are you just unfathomably retarded?
That's a good question. I don't think I'm extremely retarded, but I would say my level of retardation is about your level of intolerance. It's about the same. Yeah. And it's interesting. I'm going to stand up for this, since you're standing up like that, is this. And I like your goofy hat. It really is going to do well. You're never going to get laid, but it's a beautiful hat. Here's the thing. 54, according to a 2013 statistic, 54% of Americans' children at least suffer from one chronic illness. That's over half. And if you don't care about that, then you don't care about the future of this country. We have children now with rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, childhood diabetes. We have children with chronic inflammation. We have peanut allergies. They never used to, when I was a kid on a plane, they never said, sorry, can you take your peanuts? We have a peanut. We did because we didn't have peanut allergies. So what I said with that tweet was to get morons to come and ask questions like you did. Thank you very much. Because let me tell you, if you don't realize that Americans are sick and that we need to get our Americans healthy, then you are part of the problem. And I will say that when I was a kid, yes, there were, but there was not a proliferation of children's hospitals like there is now. And I guarantee you, and there was not a proliferation of sick children and obesity. In this country, we have 40% of Americans are obese. Obese, the technical term meaning that their body fat is obvious. We can see it. But if we don't get healthy, nothing else will matter. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Good luck with everything. I wish you well.
Hello, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you.
My name is Jackie Jones.
Hi.
I am a current UC Berkeley student. I am actually the co-president of one of the comedy clubs on campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up watching you, all of your movies, and now I've actually just transitioned to watching you more on Kill Tony. So
Thank you.
I've seen you on like a very PG level with Big Daddy, and now I'm hearing you with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 saying things I probably shouldn't say right now.
Yeah.
But,
I know. Charlie hated my language. He hated it. He told me that too. But he still loved me and still invited me because he knew that I was getting laughs. But thank you.
and I guess my question for you is that as a young female comedian, I think I wouldn't consider myself someone that gets easily offended. I think a lot of people tell me I should be getting offended for things that are jokes that are made at my expense that as a woman, right? I think they're funny, right? But I want to know, are there things that we shouldn't be joking about, something that I could joke about that you couldn't, or...
You're right. I don't think that there's any rules set in stone, but I do think that if you do a joke and people don't laugh, that you get it. But I also think it's our job to challenge people. I always say like comedy and society and cultural mores they're shifting. They don't stay, it's like the tides, they go up and they go down. And it's our job to find out where it's going up and then to push it a little bit. If I don't challenge my audience, then I'm not doing my job. Like tonight, I really think that some of that stuff, we have to challenge it. We have to do. Like that gentleman challenged me. And what he did by calling me a retard was he brought me to defend that position and explain something. And it was true. I was incorrect in a statement, but I'm glad that it brought up people talking because I was able to talk about, just like Frank talked about earlier, we're able to get to discussions by stuff. Sometimes we're making a mistake that we can talk about, and millions of people saw that tweet because what I was able to get to is that we have sick children, and we have to really worry about the health of all of you people. And so, but yeah, I think there's stuff that is too far, but you got to push things a little bit. And you'll find out like really great comedians who are the polar opposite of my political, like Sarah Silverman. She would say things and she would couch them, and I learned from her. Crazy liberal. I love her. She's a crazy liberal. And she would do things like saying, I would never say a racist joke because I think it's awful. And then she would do it. But she would get the audience to be an accomplice. Louis C.K., whether you like him or not, he's a genius. He's able to talk about horrible things because he gets the audience to question their own sense of morality through his own lack of morality. He attacks himself, and then we all laugh and question it. So in that sense, I think you should go for it. Don't be afraid to push things. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Schneider, may I shake your hand?
Yes, come on up here. Thank you. Thank you so much. And you, come up here and shake my hand. You, Antifa. You come up here. Come up here. Seriously, get up here and shake my hand. Come here. Come up here. Come here. I wish you all the best. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. All right? I love you. I do. I do. Okay, next question.
Hi, Mr. Schneider. Hi, everyone up there. I'm the chapter president at San Francisco State. And I know...
Yeah. I couldn't get into Berkeley either.
we're Asian, so we're supposed to be here, but... But my question is, I know it's your alma mater, so I was wondering what it was like to go to San Francisco State back in the day, and also how do you assess, this is for all of you, but how do you assess the climate when it comes to political speech? I know everyone has some capacity of involvement.
Well, Andrew, will you tell us what's happening in England right now? And you could talk about speech. That'll be great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because Rob mentioned that I'd written a book called Free Speech and Why It Matters. And in that book, I mentioned UC Berkeley as being this bastion of free speech back in 1964. And then I get here and there's tear gas and fireworks and people in riot gear. I'm thinking something's gone slightly wrong. And what are they upset about? We're just having discussions. We're just having conversation. You know, I mean, Rob Schneider. Is it that they don't like the hot chick? Is that what it is? I don't understand. And they're all out there going mad and going crazy. And I see that, and then you fast forward to now, 1964, free speech movement, UC Berkeley. Now, the last survey by FIRE, which is the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, they found that 1 in 3, this was only 2 months ago, 1 in 3 US students now would support the use of violence to prevent certain speakers on campus. So that is a shocking turnaround, isn't it? It's a complete reversal. And what I would say, just to answer Rob's question, because one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you just briefly is that I'd like to send a warning to you from the UK. You know, you talk about this idea of what's going wrong with political discourse. Look at the UK. So at the moment, in the UK, you know, we are arresting...
That's United Kingdom.
Yes, sorry.
I went to San Francisco State.
I thought we were in a university. I thought they would know. I didn't realize Americans do struggle with acronyms. But here, you know, back home in the UK, a recent Freedom of Information request by the Times newspaper, major newspaper, found that the police in the UK, in England and Wales and Scotland, are arresting 12,000 people every year for offensive speech online. What that equates to is roughly 30 a day. That's in the UK at the moment. In addition to that, the police are routinely investigating people for what they call non-crime hate incidents. Right? And what that effectively means is, if I offended you and you phoned up, you could phone the police and say, I perceive that that English person offended me on the basis of my racial or ethnic identity. And a little mark would be by my name recorded by the police in the UK. So think about that. The police are investigating non-crime, which I think is the opposite of their purpose. I think, don't you think? I think the police, it would be like your doctor phoning you up and saying, I hear you're really healthy. What are we going to do? That's the problem with the UK at the moment. We've got the Online Safety Act, which has just gone through, which will affect Americans as well. There are tweets that I can read here that I can't read back in London because they're blocked. And although they say ostensibly it's about protecting children from harmful content, Spiked magazine, which is a magazine I've written for in the UK, recently put out a documentary about the threat to free speech. That is now blocked on X because of the Online Safety Act in the UK. So it does affect, anything you post can affect you. So all I would say is the UK, the home of the Magna Carta 1215, saying that even the king has to subscribe to the rule of law. We had the Bill of Rights, 1689. We had English common law. It's where you guys stole free speech from. You got it from us, right? And we've just forgotten about it. We had the Enlightenment, John Stuart Mill, John Locke, John Milton, the three Johns, right? And we've let it all go. So what I'm saying to you in the US, with lots of people trying to push for an amendment to the First Amendment, saying that the First Amendment shouldn't cover hate speech, even though no one can define that. All I'm saying is if the UK can lose it, then so can you. Be very careful.
Very good. San Francisco State, an incredible experience. I had a great time there. And I got to say that I learned a lot. And I wish I would have spent more time there, but I got on Saturday Night Live and I had to leave. Sorry. Next question.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. My question is for Pastor Turek. My name is Jacob Ellis, and I'd like to address something that's in the Turning Point USA world. Wasn't addressed tonight, but I do disagree with it, if that's okay.
Please.
All right. So, Pastor Turek, as a Christian, I can deeply sympathize with you in the freedoms that you talk about Christ gives us to forgive our enemies. We saw that with Erica Kirk, right, in front of hundreds of millions of people, saying Christ forgives even this murder of my husband. However, I also can stand with you and say Romans 13 does give the state the authority and the obligation to execute justice for crime, right? So we can see that balanced in Charlie's death. Now, that being said, I think many Christians in this room, we all can agree that our land is rife with child sacrifice, right, through abortion. It's an issue we have that we need to use the power of the gospel to overcome. So as a pastoral mentor in Charlie's life, how would you reconcile this biblical justification, eternal grace in Christ, while also having justice, with Charlie's well-documented position against the abolitionist position of abortion, namely including criminal penalties for mothers who choose to terminate their children after this law is passed?
Charlie and I talked about this.
Praise God.
We would love to have an abolitionist position, but we would rather save some babies rather than none.
Understand?
So
Could I
that's
offer
the
you
position.
Okay. I did bring a few books I would love to get into your hands if that's okay. It mainly kind of talks through some of the practical ways we can accomplish both those.
First of all, I appreciate your passion on this issue, but if the law tries to go too far where the public won't accept it at this point, if you try and go to a complete abolitionist position, you're not going to be able to save any babies. And we need to save some rather than none. And by the way, even the Bible uses an incremental approach. Jesus in Matthew 8 and Matthew 19 says that Moses gave you a certificate of divorce, but it was not that way from the beginning. And why did he give a certificate of divorce? Because your hearts were hard.
Yes, sir.
So there's a difference between the goal and the strategy to get to the goal. We share the same goal, but we're not going to get there right now.
If I may, I hear that contrast because divorce, Jesus directly talks about it, but nowhere in the New Testament does he tell us to compromise on child sacrifice. And I think that's something as Christians we must put.
We're not compromising. We're trying to save some babies rather than save none. That's all. But yeah, I'm happy to look at it.
Interestingly,
yeah, thank you.
That in Iran, they support women's right for abortion here in America, yet they would never do that to their own people. Next question.
Hi, my name is Mark Bruceman. I'm actually the author of a website about homosexuality in the ancient world, in Bible and religion. It's called the Born Eunuch's homepage. And in that chapter we were just talking about Matthew 19. There's a verse in which Jesus talks about people who are born eunuchs from their mother's womb. I read that verse back in '91, and that set me on a lifetime of, well, it set me on a decade of looking for proof that eunuch, what we call a eunuch, could actually be perfectly intact and simply have no lust for the opposite sex, a man who had no arousal with women. The ancient world made that distinction. They distinguished between men who were, or people who had no lust and no arousal with women versus men who were aroused by women, and the latter were the actual men. So when we look at
Where are you going with this?
Because when you look at Leviticus, there's no prohibition of homosexuality in Leviticus or in Paul. It is a prohibition of men who have sex with women bottoming for other people.
Okay, where are you going with this?
What I'm saying is there is no prohibition on homosexuality in the Bible. Where we get the prohibition on sex outside of marriage comes from a passage in Plato's dialogue on laws.
Okay.
7 pages in which he says you use religion.
Okay, let Frank answer the question.
Okay, thank you.
Most qualified.
Yeah, I think if you look at Romans chapter 1, Paul talks about indecent acts, but we're not going to totally exegete the passage here because it's been exegeted for 2,000 years.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree, but thank you. Move on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I did not have eunuch as a question in my mind that was going to come up tonight, but that's why God delights in variety. Yes, next question.
So this question I have for Dr. Turek. I see a lot of the nonsense that Candace Owens is spewing online about how maybe Trump or Erica were involved in Charlie's assassination. I listened to the Steve Day show on the Daily, and a couple weeks ago he had an episode where he was addressing what he calls the just asking questions crowd, perpetually just never looking for answers. And he laid out some possibilities for Candace's motivations. Either she's seeking attention, demonically possessed, or maybe she's a psyop that's meant to fracture our coalition. So my question to you is, what do you think her motivation is, and how should we respond when confronted by people who believe in some of these crazy conspiracies about Charlie's death?
I've done several podcasts on this recently, and I don't know what her motivation is. I don't try and judge motivations, but let me just say a couple things. Anything's possible. But if you're going to suggest someone's guilty, you need evidence, and she doesn't have it. A dream that Charlie came to her in a dream and told her that he had been betrayed, that's not evidence, okay? Maybe it could be somehow if there's other corroborating evidence, but there isn't any. And my friend Mikey McCoy's getting death threats now. Mm-hmm. I'm getting people emailing me, you never know what can happen to you, you need to repent. Of what?
Yeah.
Stop insinuating people are guilty. Ask as many questions as you want, but do not cross that line into you're guilty when you have no evidence for it. You know what I could say right now? I could say that Candace Owens, I think Candace Owens is the real killer.
Yeah.
And she's a real killer because Charlie stopped inviting her places. And she thought that if she could get rid of Charlie, maybe she'd be president. And she's doing all this to divert attention from her being the real killer. That's possible.
But you have no evidence.
But I have no evidence, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm simply saying that seems to me what she's doing to other people.
Exactly.
We have to be careful. We have to be I'm sorry? You can go ahead. I know.
Well, you know, we do things a little. If you want a seat at the adult table, you're more than welcome to wait in line. But we don't yell. We don't shout.
Let's move forward. I will say we have to be careful.
If you disagree, you come to the front of the line.
There is temptation. There is temptation, and there's the temptation, and the devil will have that temptation to get spun out in a particular way. And to get spun out in a way that is unhealthy for you. I'm sorry?
Yeah, all right, we're done. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
let's
you.
go to the next question.
Would you be able to sign my hat, please?
Yes, sir, I will. I'll do it later.
Okay,
thank you.
Go ahead, next.
Hi, Mr. Schneider. My name is 𝗧𝗦𝗍𝗗𝗗𝗏. I'm a current freshman here at Berkeley.
All right, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, sir. Recently, I've become deeply concerned about the loss of the First Amendment and free speech. So I've been wondering, how can the United States continue to protect the First Amendment, especially on college campuses, when cancel culture and corporate influence limit our ability to speak out? And how can people think that Donald Trump wants to uphold our amendments if the Trump administration continues to support the suppression of those speaking out against the genocide happening in Gaza?
Wow, there's a lot there. First of all, it is a mistake to silence speech of any kind, and it is a mistake from the Trump administration to silence. It's also a mistake, even though I find it abhorrent, burning the American flag is still a form of expression, and while I find it awful and tasteless, it's not up to me, it's not up to my taste, and I don't think it's up, and that would never uphold in the courts. Yes, free speech is the speech that we don't like and the speech that the government doesn't like. And we have to, what the Biden administration did was the Biden administration, day one, censored Bobby Kennedy, the first person that they censored. And we don't clamp down, and they used the tech companies to do that. And all this came out. So, yes, we have to be able to express our opinions. And it was also a mistake for the head of the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, to criticize Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, that's a private company. If they want to fire him, keep him on, that's fine. I think it's a broadcast license, so they can't directly lie, but he could have asked for a simple apology or something. But I think we have to be very careful about that. And the Republicans, and I could say the conservative group, we have to be careful that we don't fall into the same trap where we use censorship like the Democrats did.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure, are the people, we don't have much time left, but are the people, the next 5 or so people, you disagree with things we've said on the stage, right? Yes?
Well, one more point, sir.
Yes, sir.
We don't have enough, I'm sorry, we don't have enough time because we really want to get, we have a long line out there.
Okay. Is it the last thing you want to say?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like it's really sad to see a country where, both sides want to, limit our ability to speak out against.
But we have the First Amendment. You got to fight for it. You got to fight for it on campus as well. You have to insist on it. We have to insist that really the cornerstone of free speech on campus is Berkeley. You got to return to that. You have to insist on it, and you have to make sure that the people who limited the number of students to come here, that someone gets held to account for that. Find out who limited that.
Thank you so much, sir. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a little bit nervous, but it's
okay
to talk with you guys. I just wanted to say it's very similar to the gentleman's question on freedom of speech on campus.
Yes.
I could be wrong. I don't want to be spreading misinformation, but I believe my chancellor, Richard Lyons, is here. If you want to call him out and just say, hey, bud, what's the deal with freedom of speech on campus? We're not having dissenting opinions coming in. They stopped the protesters from being allowed to buy tickets so we could have a back and forth discussion. And I think that hurts our movement, It
hurts everybody's movement.
Yeah, it hurts everybody. I mean, what was said in some of the materials earlier is not allowing opposing views hurts the very fabric of a healthy society.
Absolutely.
And so Richard Lyons is here, and I'm just sort of curious what.
Well, where is Richard? Where are you? Richard, are you still here?
I mean, I don't mean to be so.
No, Richard, first of all,
outspoken,
I would like to invite you on stage and to speak with us. Richard, if you're here. Not in a confrontational way.
Come on, Rich.
If you're here, you're invited to come to the stage and speak on behalf of yourself, because I don't think it's fair for me to speak for you. But
Also known as Dick Lyons. Sorry.
All right, but if you would like to come to the stage, you're more than welcome to speak your piece. I would just like to say that we need to hold people accountable for their free speech as well. If you say something outrageous, there's going to be repercussions for it. Someone may call you an a-hole or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, this campus, more than any other campus in the United States, has the foundational principle of free speech and the student body uprising for free speech. And it was free speech that was not Republican or Democrat, conservative. It was free speech for everybody. Anybody want to talk about that? Peter?
Can I add something to that? I mean, you know, a lot of the people, there's a really simple solution. If you disapprove of a speaker or you don't want to go and see a show, don't buy a ticket. And then you've made that decision for yourself. And we see there's a lot of empty, this is a sold out event and there's a lot of empty seats here. So what has happened is those individuals outside setting off tear gas and the rest have made a decision on behalf of other people, and they've said paternalistically, we're going to decide what you can and cannot go to, what words you can and cannot hear. Yes. That is called authoritarianism. That's what that is. And and those people outside here are organizing under the umbrella of Antifa, anti-fascism. Now, the problem with that, and I'm aware, I'm sensitive to the fact that there are multiple definitions of fascism and that there are disputes within academia over the precise definition. But I'll tell you one thing. The consistent feature of all fascistic regimes is the suppression of alternative viewpoints through violence. That's the key thing that they all share. So if you are a member of Antifa using violence to shut down speech you disagree with, guess what? You're kind of going along with the fascist playbook there.
Could I add to that, just to clarify? So, thank you. So when Richard Lyons has, and the university has protesters who are protesting for Palestine, for instance, different cause, violently assaulted by police officers, would that be considered Antifa necessarily because it's a suppression of their freedom of speech? Like,
freedom of speech is all speech. We define it. However, violence is violence and it's illegal.
But if it's peaceful?
If it's peaceful, then you are allowed to protest. However, if it is a private university or a university that they can make their own rules. This is a state university, and a state university must allow protests of all sorts, or we don't have free speech. That's what free speech is. And let me tell you, free speech isn't just your right to say something. It's the right of somebody else to hear it. And if we hear all our ideas, then we can come to some place. Because I think, just like Franklin Roosevelt, he believed that the American people would make the right choice, will make the right decision, or the good people if they hear everything, including the bad stuff. I need to hear the bad stuff sometimes, so I'm willing to hear it. But let's get the next person. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
This will be the last question.
Oh, really? We should get to a couple more. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. We're going to do a few
can
more.
we do a few more?
Yeah, we'll do a few
Particularly among, I really want people who disagree to come up. Most sincerely say that.
All right.
All right, go ahead, son.
All right, so my name is Mason. I'm a 13-year-old boy. So I want to get into politics when I'm older, and I'm a Christian. What advice do you have that I can blend those two?
I'll say what John Adams said. John Adams, who was a doctor, who was an attorney, and he was a lawyer, he was an incredible, and he was the second president of the United States. He thought the highest thing that you could do was to serve as a politician, to serve the people. So thank you for wanting to do that. You'll be a good one.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I have a question for all four of you. In America, and I assume so in England, we have a problem with veterans and homelessness and mental illness. What are we doing as a society to help them? On the left, I see disrespect towards veterans in our culture where men can't talk and talk about their feelings, as our military is majorly men. But on the right, and abortion is a big issue, and I disagree with abortion in general, but what are we doing to keep the people that are already here, that have fought for our freedoms here and on this earth?
Well, we have to take care of our veterans, otherwise this country's soul will rot. We need to take care of people who are protecting this country. So that we're doing better. This administration specifically is doing better, but we have to help. I mean, there used to be in World War I, there's a thing called shell shock, and then it was like, now it's down to post-traumatic stress syndrome. These are really tough things that these people come back from what they've had to endure. These are your neighbors. And I would just like to say this too, slight off subject. We need to figure out a way to include everybody to do what they can do for this country, not what this country can do for you. We need to put in a voluntary system of university students, and we need 2 years of your life. Dedicated. You want to do the military, you want to serve overseas, you want to help people. We need you to do that. We can't just have a group of people that's selective service and then just send people over, everybody. So when there is a conflict internationally, everyone's son and daughter is potentially going to be sent there. And that'll make us all think twice about some other war that we don't want to get tangled in. Thank you.
I want to mention one thing as a veteran, and that is every country has to have both a force that will protect them from evil outside the country. That's what the military is about. And a force that will protect people from evil inside the country. That's the essential primary purpose of government, to protect innocent people from evil and punish wrongdoers. Biblically, that's Romans 13. James Madison, who wrote our Constitution, said if men were angels, no government would be necessary. We need a government, and a good government, to protect innocent people from evil. Here's my question to you. I don't know the answer to it. We have limited resources in this country to take care of people. Are we spending more money on people who shouldn't be here than we are on our own veterans?
Yeah, like gender reaffirming care.
Well, not just that. I'm talking about illegal immigration.
In this state. Now,
so that shouldn't be. Every country should take care of their own first. Yeah. That's why we have countries. That's why God set up borders.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, Peter.
Yeah, I have a very quick book recommendation by Michael Schellenberger, as it's appropriate, called San Francisco. And he lays out, if you haven't read it, it's a phenomenal book. It's evidence-based, and he talks about homelessness and drug addiction. And one of the things he talks about is a principle, shelter first, housing earned. So you have to incentivize sobriety. But if you want a point of contact to read about evidence-based solutions, that's my recommendation.
Right, thank you. I appreciate your
time. If I can ask, I want Peter, if you could talk to us about, because he has a beautiful system. I want you to think about this, how to have difficult conversations. And it really was, because you're going to have difficult conversations with the people outside here who are still waiting for us to leave. How are we going to have difficult conversations, Peter? And how do we handle it?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm preparing myself for the onslaught of booze I'm about to get for this, but in 2013, I wrote a book, A Manual for Creating Atheists. Oh, wow. Okay, that wasn't what I was expecting. And I walked backstage here, and I walked in to I don't know, my new friend Frank, who wrote, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. And Frank came immediately over to me and shook my hand and said, Peter, it is so nice to meet you.
Peter, for those of you that don't know, Peter, maybe you could tell this audience a little bit about what you do, because
it's amazing.
It is amazing what Peter does. I'm a Christian, he's an atheist, but he will tell you what he's doing right now and has been doing for several years, and it might shock you. Would you tell them what's going on,
And we can all
Peter?
learn from this and how to have difficult conversations. Yeah. How far will you go? And that's a beautiful thing.
I wrote the book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, but I want to answer your question directly. So I'd like to leave people with some very specific tools that they can have to have better conversations. But before I want to do that, I want to throw an idea out to you. I think that there's a schism in the right now. I think there's a schism about Israel, about groypers. I think there's contentious conversations and conversations that need to be had. I have the following suggestion to you. rethink about the problem. The problem is not what it was 13 years ago. Again, if you said to me you're going to be on stage with Frank Turek at a conservative event, primarily with Christians, I would have thought I had some kind of head trauma. But I suggest the following to you. Frank and I have far more in common. We have something fundamental in common. And that's, we believe in, we want to conserve, as Thomas Sewell said, Rob quoted Thomas Sewell, we want to conserve the Republic. I believe that there's objective truth. Frank believes there's objective truth. We disagree on what that is, but we have conversations about that. So I want to throw this out. The first order of business is to listen. You got to figure out what someone actually believes. And I think in the heyday of the New Atheist movement, I was guilty of that. I was guilty of that because I was so certain that I was correct. I'm still an atheist, but I think I was really kind of a dick to people in the way that I treated them. And I think if I could go back now, I would tell myself, I would give myself the following advice. Really listen to people when they tell you something. The second thing I would tell myself is repeat back to them. This is called Rappaport's first rule. Repeat back to them so that you understand. And what you're looking for them is when they say, that's right. That's right. So you need to make sure that you understand. The key principle in all of this is you have to be willing to revise what you believe. So we go, my friend Reed and I, we go all around the world and we have impossible conversations with people, literally about things that are pretty grueling and ghastly, trans being chief among those, and now we're talking about Islamic immigration. But we first try to figure out what people believe, and then we ask them, what would it take to change your mind? You know, Rob asked the question, what do you want? It's an old question, ancient pedigree. What kind of life do you want to lead? What would it take for you to change your mind? I always, at 59, that's one of the first questions I ask people. I figure out, okay, what do they believe? Have I understood this? I repeat it back to them, and I might say, like, how confident are you on that in a scale from 1 to 10, or what would it take to change your mind? It's a deceptively simple way to have a conversation to put people at ease. And I just want to say one more thing. How tragic it is that we are here and these people are setting off fireworks and threatening police and they're arresting people. It's a stain on the promise of America. It is. And it doesn't matter if you're a believing Christian or if you're an atheist. Those things are less relevant now. And what's relevant is we have genuine civilizational threats that an honest person who is sincere with themselves has to look at. So my first suggestion to you would be, if you know someone of a different faith, I would suggest you do what Frank did to me tonight. You say, hey, so nice to meet you, and shake their hand. And then you listen to them. What do they believe? It's just like the disagreement that you had the same goal. Jim?
For several years, Peter toured universities with Corey Miller, who is the head of Ratio Christi, which is a Christian apologetics campus group. And they were going to these campuses to show that an atheist and a Christian could be on the same side of free speech and free expression. And some people oppose that. And they're still opposing this guy. Can you believe this? And you know whose fault it is? It's our fault, Christians, because we haven't spoken up enough. That he has the right to express his view, and he does, and you all do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just ask, Peter, what has been the most surprising thing when you go to different campuses and the stuff that you discovered, and asking people how far would you meet in the middle, or how strongly do you feel about this? What are some of the biggest surprises that you felt on campus that you've experienced?
The first thing is I really do believe that what Aristotle writes in the first line of the Metaphysics, all people want to know, all people desire to know. They want to know what's true. And that's my starting assumption. I have never questioned it even about the people outside. I think they want to know what's true, but I think they do think that they know it's true. And that's why they're not in here right now, because if they were, they'd be at the front of the line asking difficult questions. I mean, maybe that's a form of some kind of ideological capture. But one of the most hopeful things that I've found is when people actually listen to each other, and again, the tool is so simple. Listen to someone and ask them, don't put the burden on them. Don't say, do you get that? Because when you say, do you get that, put the burden on yourself. Am I being clear? Did I make that clear? It's a simple thing. But the most promising thing I've seen is people who have fundamental disagreements having honest conversations about really tough issues.
This has just hit me. He's the atheist Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Do you notice that? He wants to have a conversation, and if you disagree with him, that's fine.
No, but there is love in what he's saying, because it's an openness and an honesty for the truth. And that is love to me, an openness and honesty. Because what Peter really wants is he wants people to not be a prisoner to their own passions, to their own prejudices, and to be stuck in something where they can expand their knowledge and expand themselves and get out of a prison of their own making. And that's what I get from you. Thank you.
And I just want to say something to the organizers here. They have been absolutely fantastic. Charlie sponsored many of my events. My last texts from Charlie were incredibly supportive. And I just want to say that I'm incredibly grateful for what Turning Point has done, for the fact that you know that I have different beliefs than you, and you've been so gracious and so kind, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Now, we'll take one last question, and I want to, and do you want to say anything, Andrew, that I think...
I mean, what I would absolutely love is for someone to come up to the front of this queue and explain why free speech is a bad thing worth opposing. But what I notice is the people who believe that don't generally want to articulate it, they just want to throw shit about, which is a bit of a shame.
Yes, your question.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having the courage to be here. It's truly an honor to be in your presence while you protect free speech. My name is Nat, I'm in my 3rd year here, and I think I entered college with a very politically open mind. I was willing to engage in conversation with those who were so much more firm in their beliefs than I was, and I acknowledged any bias that was embedded into my upbringing so that I could have a very open-minded discussion and learn from my peers. But it seems that when I acknowledge the fact that I'm uneducated about politics, or that I'm not so sure on a certain topic, or maybe that I can see both sides on a particular issue, I'm met with ostracization. I'm never accepted for admitting that I don't know anything or everything, right? And I'm sure this is something a lot of my peers can relate to, and especially you, being a member of Hollywood, can relate to. Just the outcasting that gets brought upon us when we acknowledge the fact that we don't know everything, right? And you've made it clear, all of you have demonstrated the heart you have for those who disagree with you, which I think is very noble and open-minded. So I want to ask, in a society that puts us down for not being so aggressive with our beliefs, how can we collectively rise? How can we learn to not butt heads with those that we disagree with, but instead shake hands?
You got to keep trying. And again, Peter, that's a really good Peter question.
I'd love to take that question. So whenever you encounter someone like that, invariably the problem is not you. So a couple of months ago, I was driving my buddy's car, and I don't know, a guy thought I cut him off or something. I didn't think I did, and he leans out the window and he gives me an incredibly nasty look, and then he rolls down the window and he goes like this, and then I rolled the window and he said, "I'm gonna kick the shit out of you." And I said, "Oh boy, I'd really hate that." And that was it. The whole situation was completely diffused. He thought I was a retard, and he moved on. So almost invariably, the problem was with them. But I just want to give you a practical solution of something that you could do in that situation. Oh, we're getting the must wrap up thing. A practical solution to this. The first thing I would do is say, "Oh, wow, thank you. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. How confident are you," and make sure you know the claim, on a scale from 1 to 10. So scales is it's not a trick, it's a great strategy. So ask them how confident, and if they say, 9, ask them, "Oh, why aren't you a 10? But anyway, ask them what it would take to change their mind. If they say nothing, then ask them this question. What would you say about someone I asked on the other side if I asked them that question, what would it take to change your mind? And they said nothing. Hopefully they'll get the idea that they're an ideologue. But invariably, it's not you. And if you just Always remember this. Be the coolest cucumber in the room. Always. And then ask that question. Oh, how confident are you in that? What would it take to change your mind? Oh, and remember that posture. Oh, thanks. I didn't know that. Most of the time, there's something very, very quick story. There's something called the illusion of explanatory depth. It's fascinating. It's from a great study where a guy asked people if they knew how toilets worked. You heard about this? Yeah. And most people would say, yes, of course I know how toilets work. But when you ask them how toilets actually work, nobody has not even the faintest clue of how they don't know the name of anything. So even asking someone to explain how healthcare, immigration, the cost of the border, the size of the border, how much the border patrol agents make, even asking someone simple questions like that, it's very simple to I'm getting the wrap up. But so real quick, all of those begin with targeted questions. They're never an assertion. They're never a statement of fact. They're always questions.
Yeah, key question is, if you were wrong, would you want to know it?
Wow, that's good, yeah. And, you know, it's okay to be the one guy that other people think's crazy. It's okay. And you know what? As long as you have faith in that, and also come from humility, because you're going to meet bad faith actors, and you're going to meet them in this school, you're going to meet them in life, that people who don't really want to learn anything, and they think they know it all already. But if you start from a place, I don't know, then you're going to grow way more than them. And God bless you, and keep fighting. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. I'd like to thank Professor Peter Boghossian, Dr. Andrew Doyle, the great author and amazing Christian, Frank Turek. I'm 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗑𝗏𝗧. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. God bless you.